All right. Westland Garryana, the most complete Garryana tasting I think you can find anywhere. Devin, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't know anyone else that has put together this complete of a Garryana tasting yet.
Definitely more than a few people are going to be jealous of this one,
Yeah.
including myself, because you have bottles of Garryana 1 that I don't even have. So,
Oh, well, you should have told me to send you samples. I'll send you samples. Tell me what you don't have, and I'll send you samples after this tasting. How about that?
you're too kind. You're too kind. It's just the one. That's the one that's my
Oh,
unicorn. I've
then I
been
got
looking
you. I
for it
got
on
you.
auction.
I don't have a whole bottle for you, but I can we'll send you something.
Very good.
So we're here with Mike and Lindsay in person as well. We'll say hello. Doug Cooper's on right now, and then a few more people will join as we get going. But Devin, for I think all of us here maybe know you. I mean, obviously I know you, but you want to just introduce yourself real quick, and then we'll get going. And then I'll put the lineup in the chat in the order we're going to go in, and then yeah, then we'll have fun. Let's do that.
Terrific. All right. Well, thank you, as always, Nando, for having me. It's always a pleasure to work with the execs, especially right now. For me, it's kind of poignant because some of those in the tasting might be aware I actually quit the West Coast about 6 months ago.
Yep.
Wasn't entirely my idea, but the company asked me to move back to the East Coast to take over as East Coast National Brand Ambassador. So since February, I've been back home in New York, and I do miss the West Coast, especially the fantastic whiskey clubs like the Execs. So it's a pleasure to be here. And as I mentioned, my current role is East Coast National Brand Ambassador. I cover both the Westland Distillery and Bruichladdich, and I travel around the country just doing excellent stuff like this, meeting with whiskey connoisseurs and real enthusiasts, and traveling around, training our retail teams, doing staff trainings with the bars and restaurants we work with. So it's a fantastic job that I absolutely love doing. But no, never do I get as much of a good experience as I do when I'm in the room full of a bunch of seasoned whiskey drinkers who ask all the right questions and are not afraid to give me their full and honest perceptions of the whiskeys that we share. So yeah, again, like
We will do
big,
that.
yeah. Well, also, I mean, just how many clubs in this country can actually put together a full vertical of Garryana? I've been with Westland myself 5 years now. I like to kind of think of it like in stages of Garryana. So I've been around since Garryana Edition 5. We're about to release Edition 11. But truly, you guys are definitely getting the envy on it, me, because I've been hunting for that edition 1, for so long. So
You know what? I found an edition two last week in San Francisco, but I couldn't find I didn't see an edition one. But
yeah, yeah, I know. I've been looking for it only on auction sites, and even then, there's only like two or three of them that popped up historically. I've got more than a few flags out there for it right now.
okay.
But we also have actually a really interesting addition to the tasting today. For those, I'm not sure if that's in the normal tasting lineup or if that's in the extended lineup, Nando. But we're going to be tasting one of the only releases of pure Garryana oak that Westland's ever put out there, with a single cask release. So 3205. Those of you who have that in the tasting kit, that's going to be a really nice uh, way to see Garryana in a through the lens that not many people ever get to, because it's such a powerful flavor profile. So
Yeah, and
as
that's the
it's
second that's a single barrel that we paired with the Westland Winter, which was also a 2016 release. Same as the original Garyana. So yeah, we'll see that one in a little bit in the add-ons. So
terrific. So yeah, we're basically going to go through a vertical. As those of you who are here, as we started opening up the chat, you may have heard that I have arranged a little pop in to our tasting today from Westland's master distiller, Tyler Peterson, who's always good enough to join events like this. Not everything, but like when it's a real whiskey club, he gets out of his way to join us for that one. So he'll be popping in. I know that it's a Saturday, and Tyler does have family, so I told him like it's up to you. We're going to be at this for a while, and we'd love to see you whenever you're able.
yeah,
So no
absolutely.
guarantees.
Hey Beth, Beth, we haven't even started yet. We're but go ahead and pour. edition one, one, one.
Okay, there's a lot here.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
the FYI, Devin, this is the biggest tasting I've ever done from a bottle count standpoint. So those members that got everything have 12,
12.
12 samples today, which is more than I've ever done. Plus, anyone who's here in person, we got three extras. One being our Westland single cask, and then two other single casks. One from Liquor Lineup, a little RIP to Sal, who just passed away, who owned Liquor Lineup, and then we also have oh, what's the one out in Phoenix? Pitch in Phoenix.
Yeah,
Is
I
that
was over there.
Scottsdale? Scottsdale.
Yeah, I was over there.
Yeah.
That place has some of the best pizzas ever.
Pitch is really cool. It's a really
Yeah.
good it's a great spot for sure. Okay, so I'm excited. Let's get into the 1-1 and then we'll talk about it. I still remember when this came out a decade ago now. Before the club even started. I actually, funny enough, I was looking back through my pictures. I think it was 2017. I had the 1-1 and 2-1, and I had posted a picture of it on my personal Instagram well before I started or about a year before I started the club. And that kind of gave me a good chuckle because I don't know. Like
Yeah.
before this was a thing, I had already
Right.
had these bottles. And then obviously through the years we kept collecting and like I loved and then after fifth I kind of stopped a little bit, but then I had Devin, thanks for kicking in for us covering through 10 and then but obviously I have a few other special editions from Westland and there's a few that I have in the inventory for future tastings as well. So
Well, yeah, I mean, it's incredible for me to believe that it's been 11 years of Garryana releases.
yeah.
I remember when I was working at a whiskey bar in New York City, and I was lucky enough to be working the day that we had a staff training with Chris Riesbeck and Matt Freerks, and they had Matt Hoffman coming in through New York, and we were able to kind of get a staff training with Matt. Um, so he came in and just talked to me and my team of like five or six other staff, and we just heard his passion and a little bit of the story that began in 2011 with Garryana. Um, it's what a crazy history at this point. You know, so many things have happened. I definitely, like I said, I kind of number my years at Westland by the Garryana releases, but it's also kind of the kind of stories that have passed into legend, especially with our Garryana Edition 10, our very first age statement. So a little bit about the Edition 1. This is a release from 2016, but the actual story of Garryana started in 2011. So many things have changed from where we are right now with Garryana Edition 11 about to release and the Garryana 10 that just came out last year, our first age statement. I think it would kind of be important to also try to remember that Garryana was not a foregone conclusion for Westland, especially for Matthew and Emerson as they founded this distillery. Two very young guys, just kind of like really focused on provenance of the Pacific Northwest. They weren't facing the kind of questions that Westland is very used to getting these days, like why aren't you making bourbon, or are you making Scotch in Seattle? They were definitely looking for ways to set themselves apart and found a native oak basically in their various different meetings with suppliers, the maltsters they'd work with, the coopers, and started working with rewind barrels in Oregon for this new species of oak. Basically, they were touring their cooperage at Rewind and basically were told of this Garryana oak, this Pacific Northwest indigenous species of oak that was basically just sitting there, hundreds and hundreds of board feet that really nobody wanted. And they were so kind of confused by this, and they asked a million questions. Tyler, when he joins us later, will kind of tell you a little bit about that initial meeting because I think the idea of working with Garryana was not entirely new. Some other wineries, especially up there in the Pacific Northwest, had started playing around with Gary Oak, and even some whiskeys, particularly McCarthy's and a few others had started messing around with Gary Oak. But mostly what other distillers were doing was basically putting some Garryana oak chips in stainless steel vessels with the whiskey, or maybe even working with some Garryana staves in a pre-constructed cask. But nobody had at that point ever made a complete cask out of Garryana oak. And that was something that Matthew and Emerson and Tyler and Shane and the team were definitely able to say they were the first to do. As the 5 years I've been with Westland, the one thing I've been taught to avoid to say is that we were the first to do blank, which I always take as kind of a reflection of who the Westland distillery is. Definitely thought provoking, definitely pioneering, definitely trying to break down new barriers, but they're very careful not to present themselves as, the originators of some of these thoughts. And I think that sometimes in that kind of modesty, Westland sometimes doesn't give themselves enough credit. So there will be a few things that I can say that Westland did the first. The first time a entire cask was constructed of Gary Oak to mature a whiskey, that was Westland. The first time the words American single malt whiskey in that order were put on a bottle, that was Westland.
Yeah.
But just about everything else that Matthew and Emerson and the team undertook was kind of taking knowledge that had already been explored and just running it over the finish line, or at least continuing to run with the ball. So
yeah,
Garryana,
everyone takes inspiration from somewhere, right? So it's okay.
Exactly. There's no original thought,
first.
and we say that as in my years as a bartender, I would say that as well. You try to come up with a new cocktail. Trust me, somebody's done it before.
Yeah. What I really loved about the Garryana for me, and like maybe this is getting a little ahead, but I've always loved the celebration of the Gary Oak, and like the obviously it's a native species of oak, right, to where Westland is located, and I love that, and it kind of keeps it's always been the thing that made Westland distinct to me out of a whole lot of different American single malt distilleries that I could point to Garryana and I say that's Seattle, that's Westland, that's like kind of what they do. Obviously Westland does way more than that, but like to me, that's like if Seattle's home to you, Garryana to me, like the Garryana bottlings are home for whiskey.
Yeah, I think, where did it originate? Like this need to set themselves apart. Matt and Emerson both have kind of different stories as to what really inspired them towards single malt as a style. But I think they were both really in unity in agreeing that they wanted something that was going to bring Pacific Northwest provenance. And I think looking at the raw materials that were available to them, trying to set a new road, Garryana really appealed to them. I don't think they knew back in 2011 the challenges that they were going to face in undertaking what they originally started calling the Native Oak series. But nowadays, those that know the Westland Distillery, we've kind of evolved that into what we call the Outpost range. So Garryana, like Nando says, it's like our annual thing. It's kind of what put Westland on the map, and it does have a real nice kind of link in ethos to what we're doing because it requires preservation. But again, like Nando said, we don't want to like get too ahead of ourselves because we're going to definitely talk about the challenges they faced in getting enough Garryana oak as we go through these other editions. But right here, 2011, when Matt and Emerson are visiting Rewine and finding out these casks, these board feet are available to make new casks, and looking for a way to kind of bring a new flavor into whiskey, that's where it started. I am told the story that the very first casks of Garryana that they constructed and filled with whiskey, they put them aside and came back about a year later and took a look at them, and something like 40% of the whiskey had leaked out. Oh, wow. So, basically they discovered quite quickly that Garryana oak, while bringing a new flavor, absolutely it accomplished that, but some of the drawbacks of working with this type of wood were apparent and evident. So as a matter of fact, I see that Tyler Peterson just joined us. So that's terrific. Thanks for joining us, Tyler. I appreciate you giving us some time your weekend. Everyone who's in the room who hasn't met Tyler before, let me introduce him in the way he deserves. We are talking to Tyler Peterson, Westland's master distiller. He's pretty much been there since the very, very beginning. I have many, many videos in many of my presentations that show Tyler as just a young tyke running around the woods making whiskey casks, but I won't embarrass him with those today because videos never translate well on Zoom links. Tyler, again, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. We're your perfect timing. We're just stepping into Garryana Edition 1,
Right
and
on.
I don't
How's
want
it
to
going,
put you on the
Tyler?
spot. It's been a few years, so if you want me to go through cask maturation profile, I'll be happy to, and then you can just give us comments. But let's just say hi to Tyler. How's it going?
Yeah, yeah.
How's it going,
I want
Tyler?
to say hi. Thanks for having us. I
Absolutely.
really appreciate Nando and the Whiskey Execs Club hosting this opportunity. I mean, Devin, I love sitting in and hearing you speak and spread the gospel and speak so eloquently about all of your deep knowledge of whiskey production and the intricacies of the entire industry. So I'm as excited as I think anybody else is here today. I do have another event to kind of zip to pretty soon, but yeah, I'm gonna kind of hang out for as long as I can and just wanted to say hello and thank you. And I'm really excited. We've all got some great whiskey to try.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining, Tyler. Appreciate it.
thanks a lot, Tyler. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
basically, as we were saying, like really, we were just saying, Tyler, like one of the things we have a lot of whiskey to get ahead of. Nando was saying this is probably one of the largest in terms of just sheer liquid volume that the execs have ever put on. What did you say? It was a total of
Not, no,
13?
it is definitely by bottle count, it is by far the biggest tasting we've done by at least one bottle. I'm pretty sure this is by two bottles because normally we max out at 10, but we've got 12 today.
Yeah.
So
So we've got editions 1 through 10. We've got Westland Winter, and we've got one of the very rare releases of the hand fill 3205, the second fill Garryana oak cask that I brought back with me from Seattle. Um, and yeah, we were just saying, like basically the first Westland excursions with wine with the Garryana oak casks coming from Rewine. Definitely looking for a way to bring a new flavor into the world of whiskey, which up until this point, as everyone in this room knows, like most of whiskey at that point in the whiskey history, right, like was pretty much defined in four major styles of cask. Most of the whiskey industry was using either Quercus alba, American white oak, Quercus robar, European oak, um, Quercus Patria, French oak, and the very deep pocketed distilleries were working with Quercus mongolica, Japanese white oak, or Mizunara oak. Back then, there wasn't a lot of people talking about Amberana like they are today.
uh, they shouldn't talk
Screw the
about it. I hate it. So
right? Screw those rainforests. Who needs that, right?
yeah,
People weren't talking about Tokai oak, Hungarian oak,
like
and
Hokkaido.
Irish oak were, they were happening, but they weren't really something that was in the vernacular for most whiskey drinkers. And exploring the ways to bring the Pacific Northwest into it when they were told of this indigenous species, they were obviously excited. But as I said, Quercus Garryana has its drawbacks. Doesn't grow tall. Maybe you get two or three casks, if even that, out of one single tree.
Mm.
Doesn't seem to care where the sun is coming from. It just grows all kinds of windy. And if anybody knows anything about Japanese white oak, that's a limitation with Japanese white oak as
Yeah,
well.
Mizunara.
It's also endangered, and they found out very quickly they couldn't cut down these trees for fear of taking on a fine. They had to wait for these trees to fall naturally. So the cooperages that they were working with had Gary Oak board feet just sitting there, but not really any market for it. And as I said before Tyler joined, like Westland, we're very loath to say that we were the first to do anything, but I do like to kind of remind people how Westland has set up whole new economies in their pursuit of making something new. So I hope after today's tasting, people will kind of notice how many more distilleries today are playing around with Garryana oak, which is just something that I think Tyler and the team at Westland can take a lot of credit for. So listen, in October of 2016, we released Garryana Edition 1. Admittedly, that was before my time. The bottling was released at 56.2% ABV, and we had a total run of about 2,500 bottles, which
Oh,
is probably why I cannot get a single one of them. And Nando was nice enough to share with us one of his last. In this particular case, 21% of the whiskey.
the last.
Yeah, probably. 21% of the whiskey was distilled from pale malt, which was matured in new Garryana oak. And the remaining 79% was kind of a mix mash of malts, basically the early structure of what became Westland's 5 malt, as well as a little bit of peated malt, if I'm correct, Tyler. I didn't ask Nando to ship me a tasting kit. So while I have every other whiskey that's in the tasting room, in the tasting mat today, that's the one that I'm kind of just going off of.
It's my fault for not asking because I should have. And I meant to the other day and I just forgot because that's quarter end for me too. But you're going to get it. So we'll get it. And I will say, I still love this. I still think this is really good. The only thing is, I would say, I remember when I first tasted this, this was like so brand new to me and like, it like blew my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas today I'm feeling like these flavors are a little more normal. Partially probably because I've drank a lot more since then, but also because I'm sure people have imparted some of these flavors and some of the things that we've done over time that weren't always present back in 2016, 17, 18.
Yeah.
And I have to give a little shout out to one of your teammates, Joey Overleen, who is the guy that got me into Westland in the way I am. He used to be a kind of a neighbor of mine down here in Orange County, so we used to drink a lot of Westland and brew a Gladi. So for me, it was perfect because at the time, those were my 2 favorite distilleries, and I had no idea that Remy owned both. So
Yeah. Yeah, Joey's the best. We have Joey do a lot of great events for us. He always speaks so passionately on Westland and represents us so well today in Texas. So
yes,
we were lucky to have him in Seattle when we launched Watch Post, and me and my wife had him over to the apartment. We drank some Garryana and some Bruichladdich at my place too. So
nice,
keep it running. Now,
nice.
yeah, listen, this was the start, guys. 2016, Garryana Edition 1. Like I said, I was lucky enough to taste it with Matt Hoffman. Matt probably doesn't even remember this. This was so long ago. But that was, like I said, the story kind of began in 2011 with Matt and Emerson and Tyler visiting Rewind and exploring Garryana Oak for the first time. But when Garryana Edition 1 released, I believe it was just above 3 years old. So this was not an immediate pursuit. You know, there was an experimental time. Like I said, there was that first experiment with Garryana Oak Cask where they realized, yes, this new type of wood does bring a whole new flavor into the world of whiskey, but in a way, remember that they also discovered it somewhat over-delivered on that mission. You know, it's such a powerful flavor, flavor factor. The compounds inside the wood are slightly different, you know, and let's not make the mistake as we go through the tasting today that we're just it's got a different name just because it's from Washington. No, there is a strict biological difference between Quercus alba or American white oak and Quercus Garryana that actually puts in a way, we can kind of go through those subtle like chemical differences, but in a way, Garryana oak is chemically speaking much more, biologically speaking, much more similar to French oak. I'm sorry, much more similar, I believe, to American oak or even Japanese oak, but behaves much more like French oak due to a super high tannic structure and just a whole different type of oak lactone. In this case, cis oak lactone, which has a huge impact on flavor. And so, very quickly, Matt and Emerson and Tyler realized that the Garryanas that they released had to be somewhat tempered. Lest Garryana herself steal the show, they started incorporating different types of casks. So as we said, Garryana Edition 1 incorporated new Garryana oak cask with pale malt, and those mixed mash early 5 malt recipes went into new American oak or more traditional Quercus alba casks.
Which is a great segue to pour edition 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we finally get into one that I have. I'm so excited.
And if I remember correctly, Devin, I mean, you can tell me if I'm wrong. Garryana oak imparts a lot of phenols, right? A lot more phenols than other oaks.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's one of those kind of organic compound differences. Specifically, the high degree of phenols, but there's actually um, a slight smokiness due to that I think is kind of natural within Gary oak.
Hmm.
So over the 10 different editions so far, we've had some that are heavily peated. We've had some that are not peated at all. But I think some people who are sensitive to smokiness kind of always pick up a little bit of peatiness in Garryana. Maybe not even peatiness, maybe that's not the right word, but a little bit of smokiness. I think it's kind of a natural part of the flavor profile.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you're saying, the chemical profile and the extractives available for Garyon are just quite a bit different. And so with this one, like you're mentioning, yeah, the phenol content is different. There is more guaiacol, right? That kind of toasty phenolic level of smoke that we associate often with peat. So this one for me comes off as that like there's a campfire nearby,
Yeah.
right?
I
And
like the early descriptors. You called it damp forest smoke, and that really woke up my imagination.
yeah, it's just been extinguished by that fresh rain, right? There's a lot of clove, and that's that eugenol character that's just kind of off the charts. It doesn't have it has vanillin, but not nearly as much as your kind of classic white American oak. And it also has, just this tannin structure that's quite pronounced. And so every approach is different, and I really love Edition 2 because it is a nice transition away from the peated malt. So you just look at the phenolics that are coming from the oak. When we put this one together, 52% of it is a pale malt aged in new Alba, Quercus Alba, and 21% of it is a pale malt in that Garryana oak. And then we've got some R5 malts in there too to provide some malt body. But it is a much more direct reflection of what is going on. And when you decrease the proof, we're now at 50% ABV, right?
No.
You're actually going to now kind of enhance some of the ability for your palate to pick up the phenols and the intensity of that is going to be perceived at a higher level than if it was bottled at a higher proof.
Fantastic. The edition two had such a kind of more candied style to it. I mean, it's like I feel like almost floral, fruity notes that are pitching in. Is that coming from like the newer Quercus Alba? Is that like
Yeah,
basically? Yeah.
right. Yeah, it takes that clove spice and then it kind of wraps it in that higher sweetness. You get like candied ginger notes are really pronounced in this for me. There's that classic wood smoke and molasses is pretty big, right?
I kind of get
And
this is so weird because I don't remember ever getting this, but previously, but I get like a toasted marshmallow note, like a marshmallow on fire note in this one a little bit, which I was like, I wasn't expecting that. But
And
Mm.
I think a pretty strong vanillin note, like
Mhm.
that. But it's like it's not sweet, it's sharp.
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And 2017, this is that first year where we really went back out into the market to kind of build and develop that supply chain for this oak, as Devin was mentioning. We went down with Todd Dolinger from Rewine, and he had already kind of found some potential ranchers that were looking to get rid of some oak. They were legally harvestable. He brought us to a farm where there were a couple of Mennonite farmers who were running a sawmill at the time, like a little
Really?
metal shed on their property. And I think between the two of them, they didn't have 15 fingers. Like there was a lot of digits from the farm life. And when their neighbor needed a new roof for their barn, they would cut down some timber on the property and plane it out. And that Gary Oak was gone. And so we showed up and said, hey, we'd love to make some whiskey with this stuff, and we'd love to develop this relationship. And initially they didn't want anything to do with us. These Mennonites didn't want to be a part of the alcohol industry and didn't want to influence that. But we said, look, it could be made into a fence post. It could be burned to heat your home. But if you send it to us, we're going to send it to Portland. It's going to be made into staves at Gobi Walnut. They're going to send it down to California at Segna Row, and they're going to make it into staves. And they're going to make those staves into barrels, and then those are going to be sent back up to us. And we have a rack house crew. We have a distillery crew that are all going to use these barrels after the fact. It's going to get a first, second, third fill. The longevity and life of these. Now the stories that I get to tell with you all. It really gives these trees much more life than just kind of a single use fence post. And so they said, okay, we'll sell you some of this oak. And so it was really, we were putting up want ads on tack and feed stores saying, hey, is a tree about to fall over on your house? Like Westland will hook you up with the people that will take and process that. And so like you said, Devin, we're not the first to do this. The industry was there, but very, very small. And so in order to build and scale it to what we needed, but also what others would eventually need, then yeah, we needed to go down there and do some footwork. And so 2017 was that year when we kind of hit Oregon hard and looking for more trees and building the supply chain. And now, a couple of years ago, the head distiller for Method Madness, Middleton Irish Distillers came to the distillery and
Oh
dropped off
yeah,
a
they did it.
finished whiskey, right? And so to see that, local oak species now reflected in an Irish style whiskey, I love that. I love that
And
tapestry and of all of us, contributing ideas.
Dr. Bill Lubston has been interested in using Gary for his stuff too. So
Yeah, more power to him,
I don't
right?
know.
Right? Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic. It's
So
so,
cool. You see the reach that it's had over time, right? So
yeah.
that's pretty cool.
And that's kind of what, the transition in label styles was about, where it was really initially focused on the cask, on that oak and everything else. But then later we realized it's more about the outpost range is about planting a flag, exploring, uncharted territories in our oak and hoping that others follow. Because as we're all talking about this and thinking about the nuances or the things that are unique, we want to be able to turn around and celebrate with people rather than realize that we're all alone and nobody knows what the hell we're talking about. And so to see others using it is just a wonderful, wonderful thing that I think whiskey brings people together. And I'm excited, for these kinds of opportunities.
Here's to that.
Also, if I could say, like, it's amazing that, I mean, I know that the team at Westland, you and Shane and Matt and Emerson, we're definitely trying to kind of stake new territory and pioneer a new style of whiskey. And so much influence obviously is taken from Scotland, and so much influence is taken from Ireland, and even from here in the States from bourbon makers. And finally, the industry comes full circle. And there's so many distilleries today that are taking inspiration from Westland, and that's incredible. I mean, what an incredible story to be a part of. Like, as somebody who's been in the whiskey industry, just 10 years, it's not a lifetime yet, but to actually feel like I've been through so much of the history of Westland as a part of the team, it's a real special place in my heart to see like how many people have come to respect and look to Westland for a real understanding of how things are done.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome for you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Plus, it's my favorite American distillery, so there's that.
Well, Tyler, I should probably mention to you a few weeks ago, my wife and I were able to join Sukhinder Singh for a tasting with the Manhattan Whiskey Club. And it was obviously an awesome opportunity to taste somebody who's had such a profound impact on the industry, but just also in the scope of his business, like the exposure he's had,
Yeah.
and he was, he says his thing on every distillery. He's got his opinions,
Yeah.
He took special time out of this tasting to stop and say the one American distillery that really inspired him, especially in their cask maintenance, is the Westland Distillery.
Yeah.
And he did not know I was in the room. He did not know that there was a Westland guy in the room, but he was just could not say enough good things about what you guys are doing with your casks.
Hmm. You know, I spend so much time making this whiskey that, I don't need to chase the whiskey that I put on the shelves. But this one was definitely one that I had to, when he decided to bottle a Westland single cask, it's actually a multi-vintage blend for his whiskey trail, like, oh man, like, thank
It's a
you.
cool bottling that they do. I love their labels on that bottling.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we bottled your first ever Calvados cask. So, or I guess it was the first ever Calvados maybe to market.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, was that 5 malt in Calvados?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 3859. So what was that one?
I mean, we should also probably say, because we keep saying 5 malt. I mean, I'm assuming execs, they all know what they're talking about. But is there any need to kind of go through what that means, or are you
You
confident
can.
that
There's going to be people on the recording that are kind of new to Westland that are
sure?
going to watch this later. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Because
I mean,
the chocolate malting that Westland does is like that's like I can pick Westland out of almost anywhere just because I know that's like my like taste and I love it. So
yeah, I mean, it's such a distinctive thing about what we've done. Over the years that I've been with Westland, like really, there's so much experimentation, and Tyler and the team are really like always looking for ways to either be more efficient or also just explore new territories. Um, you know, the 5 malt has become like such a Westland thing. It's a signature. It's to me like, yeah, there's something that I can pick out on a blind tasting that I know is Westland. So I just wanted to kind of like bring it up. This is a little thing that I travel around the market with when I try to explain to people what I mean. This is our 5 malt little samples. 80% of the grains that we use for our 5 malt barley bill come from Washington State in the form of Washington Pale Select Malt and Munich Malt. But then, Westland's efforts towards finding a new way to introduce flavor. It doesn't limit us to just keeping things local. We like to keep things as sustainable and local as we can, and sourcing these barleys from Washington State is fantastic. But in their pursuit of roasted malts, very quickly, Matt and Emerson and the team discovered they had to travel much further. So next, we step into Breese Extra Special Malt we get from none other than Breese in Wisconsin. As well as we go to Thomas Fawcett and Sons. Well, traditionally we had gone to Thomas Fawcett and Sons for our dark roasted malts, which include pale chocolate malt and brown malt. So basically, those five put together, those pale malts are a small percentage, but they have such a huge contribution to flavor. Whereas most of the single malt whiskey industry does not believe that barley has a big impact on flavor. Um, Westland really strives to kind of set that feeling aside, and I think 5 malt also, for the purposes of this conversation, we should mention the inclusion of these dark roasted malts does such a profound impact on flavor that it also performs better in different types of casks. So you might hear throughout these editions that we go through today that Tyler's choice or Matt's choice was to work with pale malt variety, whereas some other liquids were 5 malt. You'll find pale malt was just it's a great medium to be able to allow the actual natural flavor profiles of the casks to sing forward, whereas the 5 malt behaves better in pre-used casks because it allows it also to keep some of its signature flavor, the dark chocolate and espresso tones that have become so kind of gripped in with who Westland is. So just take that moment to talk about it.
Absolutely. And to that point, like, you've all made an old fashioned before, right? With your favorite whiskey. Try it with flagship. See how those roasted and killed malts change that whiskey in a very dramatic way. Make a paper plane, because any addition of lemon, citrus really enhances that chocolate malt profile in a different way. And like that cocktail doesn't traditionally have this kind of chocolate note, but you'll find the depth in your kind of standard cocktails that you know and love are really brought to life in a different way. And so it's a fun way to explore those things that that we really love.
What
Speaking
about
of
just
exploration,
pressing a lemon peel into
yeah,
Eyeball.
100%, right?
Interesting. I
Yeah,
never even thought about that. Makes plenty of sense.
About to go pick a lemon.
But I didn't even well, yeah, I've got huge lemons over here, so we could do that. How
So-
interesting. I didn't think about that.
So on the East Coast, I don't see as much Westland, obviously, as they do there on the West Coast. And you talked about your flagship. What is that?
So our flagship is our core expression. We released it originally in 2022. And what we're doing with that one, we use our 5 malt barley bill, but we also include a sixth barley, peated malt from Scotland. Yeah, the flagship expression, we use a combination of virgin virgin Cooper's Reserve and Cooper Select casks that are air dried and slow growth. We use a little bit of ex-bourbon cask. We even use a small amount of sherry casks. It's perfectly kind of balanced with complexity and nuance for a single malt whiskey drinker. Whereas the earlier releases of Westland, what we now call our heritage range, might have even leaned a little bit more into the 5 malt. And I think they may have had something that bourbon drinkers were holding on to. In an effort to remain sustainable, facing dwindling sherry casks, and obviously trying to step outside of, step into the world of single malt and nuance more. The flagship was released. I absolutely love it. I think it's a bottle that just really it's Westland's signature pour in a single dram. You will know who we are after you buy that bottle.
Yeah, it's almost like a blend of the three that you used to have, right? Like to a degree. Because I used to love the sherry cask. I mean, I loved all of them, but I love the sherry cask. I used to drink those like a lot.
Part of the kind of evolution into the flagship, like what you're saying is 100% true, Nando. Like we can absolutely say there's a bit of a blend of the 3 original heritage range whiskeys, but I'm a little careful of saying that because I think that, like all blended whiskeys, it's more than a sum of its parts.
Sure.
The 5 malt recipe was kind of tuned in a little bit just to allow more nuance, but it didn't also lose our signature. And I really just also think like it made sense for who we were. We were at a certain time, Westland was able to say we had the largest collection of sherry casks for any of the huge craft distillery booms, the craft distilleries that were booming all around the country. But obviously, as anyone in this club knows, sherry casks are more and more difficult to source. They're not of the highest quality as they used to be.
Yeah.
We had to face the fact that sherry wood, while it was many people's favorite, it was just not something we could sustainably make, especially with the principles and ethos that Westland was also really kind of tied to. So I'm not trying to reprimand you. I don't want you to get the wrong impression. I love the flagship. I also love the heritage range, but my wife and I have a little bit of a disagreement. She loves American oak and sherrywood. I as a single malt lover, I'm just like, no, flagship is really what speaks to me.
And they're all really good. So Beth, I think I have an open flagship. I'll send you a sample in the next one. Just remind me because I forget a lot. But
might even be easier for me since I'm also East Coast.
Where are you? Beth is in Delaware, so she's just down the road from you. So.
I was just there 2 days ago. Too bad. I would have set you up, but I can definitely either me or Nando will set you up afterwards.
Yeah.
So Nando was pouring the edition 3.
Yeah.
And
4 and 3.
Edition 3, we went back up from 50%. I noticed, Tyler. We were at 56.2 for edition 1. Went to our more standard these days for our limited releases, 50% ABV for the edition 2. But for 3, we popped up to a 56% ABV. We also
this does not drink anywhere close to 56. This is like so easy to drink.
And I think that's part of it, right? Is that we're always trying to be led by the whiskey. We very rarely write ourselves very hard and fast rules. And yeah, 50% ABV makes a lot of sense. Or standardizing it when you're trying to compare across releases and everything, and different styles of whiskey that you make. Yeah, a standard proof makes a lot of sense. But this whiskey as you mentioned, it doesn't drink as hot as that is, and so it is really nice
We're
to
close.
punch it up and let the
It almost
whiskey
tastes
just
like
do its thing.
46%. If I was gonna guess, if I drank this, I would think 46.
So sweet. It's almost
Yeah.
like a pork cask or something. Like
And then you guys, 3 is when you started imparting other, or was it 2 when you started imparting other cask staves?
So edition three, well, basically, I think what happened, and again, this was a little before my time, so Tyler's going to probably put a little finer point on it. But I think at that point they started becoming aware, or at least having to face the rarity of board feet that they had available to them.
Yeah.
So I think with the edition three, correct me if I'm wrong, Tyler, but you guys had to incorporate more of a cask finish protocol as well as some limited amount of Garryana oak.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I don't know. I don't recall the numbers of barrels in the blend, but yeah, it's a thing where we started to recognize that this was a gaining interest and we wanted to broaden the kind of exposure of it. But also that intensity, right? Like how do you do that? You can't just barrel more Garyana and then expect people to enjoy it. And so using a finish, a second fill Garyana is a great way to get access to that wonderful bouquet of intense spice without the intense tannin level. And so this one also included some port cask, right? So you're tempering uh, uh, some of those tannic notes with that kind of rounding texture from that kind of fortified wine. So I think it's a really interesting. And then we brought in the Baird's heavily peated malt too for this one, right?
Yeah.
Get that smoke. Um, it's really trying to explore, I think, all of the edges of being a big whiskey, and saying like, okay, we can have port, we can have new oak and Garyana, and our five malt and peated,
Did you
but
say you
still
use
do it in a way
Baird's?
that's really Baird's have, yeah, 55 parts per million total phenol.
Oh, I didn't know you guys used
So,
Baird's. Interesting. Okay.
Now, at this
mhm,
point, also,
yeah.
it's at least on paper, we're looking at five malt, pale malt, and peated malt. If you recall, was it the same formulation as you used for edition one, or did you tweak that again for three? I'm putting him on the spot. I feel terrible.
Yeah,
before this.
yeah, no, it's a good question. And so, full disclosure, right? I'm not the blender of the operation,
Right.
by any means,
Focus
but
on-
this is one where we did have to revisit. So I think some of this is, if I'm not mistaken, it's some of 2016 that we revisited, because that's one of the things that our blender will do is he'll make a larger batch than we'll ever need, and then he'll put that away back in cask, and then bring that back out for future releases, to create continuity, but also to see what kind of direction and tempering that time brings to the kind of bigger notes.
Yeah,
You
I
have
would
the
actually,
Garyana Solera system.
Yeah.
I would say like one of the first times I visited our warehouses up in Skagit, Shane was feeling magnanimous, our master blender, Shane Armstrong. And he allowed
Who
us,
who blended maybe my favorite Westland of all time, FYI.
which
I'll
was
I'll, I'll bust that out in a minute.
okay. um, so yeah, Shane was allowing myself and the other distillery ambassadors to kind of look around for casks we were interested in perhaps exploring as single cask options. And I somehow found an old Garyana 2, or at least it was an old Gary in port. And
Hmm.
I was like, hey, can I sample this one? And I remember his reaction was like, you can taste it. You're not going anywhere with it. Like it's not going anywhere. Like he definitely has like some tricks up his sleeve, or as to say, in the warehouses. And I think a lot of times in my tastings, I'll speak to the partnership of distiller and blender. So Tyler, thanks for bringing it up. Like it's really um, incredible that the way that you guys have complemented each other with process and experimentation, but also with like a balanced hand and just organizational mind to keep all of your stocks kind of in sync with each other. So, again, thank you very much for making these fantastic whiskeys. Yeah, so let's see. I don't think I have the number of bottles that came for the edition 3. I will, however, say that this one was a 53-month in age at the youngest whiskey that was in there. So, as you can see, we're getting a little bit older as we go on, which wasn't too much of a surprise as the whiskeys, as the interest in Garryana was continuing to grow. So, any questions about the edition 3 before we move in? We've got a lot to get through. So,
Yeah, we have a lot.
So, what peated? When was peated barley introduced into the Garryana lineup?
So the first year we did actually use a little bit of the peated malt. So it was actually from the very beginning. The second year there was no peated malt; it was just 5 malt. Third year, again, it was a combination of pale malt, peated malt, and 5 malt.
Okay.
But I would say, I'd have to kind of go over it again real quick, but I'd say it's about half and half for Garryana, peated or unpeated whiskeys. That's another thing that I love about Garryana. It's not always just about the cask. It's also about the spirit inside, the style of whiskey, the barley that was used. That's a way that there's always been permutations.
And is there any plan to go back up to an ABV to the bottling? Or are we staying at 50?
No, yeah. I just finished helping bottle Garryana
The glass?
edition 11. So that's still going to be 10-year age stated whiskey, and that's up to, I think, 56 proof.
Nice.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Oh, that's fantastic.
56%, not proof. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so that's again bumping up in proof. This is a true cask proof whiskey, so that'll be nice.
Oh, my favorite Westland is the
Oh,
Reverie.
Reverie.
Yeah,
Yes.
And I
phenomenal.
was told that Shane blended this, but maybe it wasn't.
No, yeah, he's been blending everything since the Garryana 1.
Yeah. Okay. So then that was him. And yeah, I remember having that when I went to the distillery in 2018. If I remember correctly, 2017 or 2018. And I immediately bought a bottle.
Yeah.
Had I been smart and had maybe a little bit bigger budget back then, I probably would have bought 2.
That one does come up a lot. So
Yeah,
might be
I love the
something to mention. We're all looking for Reverie 3.
So Garryana 1 and Garryana 3 are related, and it's kind of related to Shane's blending experience. So Matt Hoffman, he blended the original Garryana 1, and then he sent that dump list down to our rack house out in Hopium, an hour and a half away, and those guys misread a barrel number and included a port cask. And it completely changed the trajectory of where the intention of this blend was to go. And so we had to start over from scratch because, all 40 of those barrels had been batched together and dumped. And what are you going to do? It's, some of your most expensive liquid. And at this time, Shane had already been doing a lot of the QA, QC work for the business and was transitioning into this blending role. And so I think Matt just kind of may have just thrown up his hands and was like, okay, have at it. This is yours. So Garryana 1 version 2 that we all are tasting is Shane's first blend. And now Garryana 3, where those forecasts come in, right? That is that revisiting of that Garryana 1 that has been siphoned off of some of those barrels and then put back into this marriage.
This is what I love about these kind of tastings, because you don't hear these stories on the websites or on the review pages. This is fantastic to hear that. I had not heard that before.
And to be fair, I thought I knew everything about Garryana, so to learn something new is always good.
Right. And Westland
Can
makes
we keep
3 spirit styles. We make a pale malt, a peated, and our 5 malt. Within the pale malt spectrum, though, we've distilled almost 35 unique barley varieties. And then within the casks that we use, we've got the new oak, we've got sherry, we've got wine, beer, all of the various fortified, what have yous. And so there's probably 65, well, 70 now unique barrel types in the rack house. And so if you just multiply the 3 spirit types by the 65 cask types. You've got thousands of combinations.
Yeah.
And then if you take any of those and then rebarrel them after blending, right? The opportunity for flavor development and exploration, it spider webs into a pretty intricate field. So I'm very envious of, and also fearful of the work that Shane has to do to try and figure out how to pull that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, plus you have different peated malts, right? You've got the Washington peated malts now and the
Mhm.
Old Beards, and so yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. That's fun.
It's often when you visit that is one of my favorite things about living up in Seattle was being able to bring some of my local, whiskey accounts to the warehouses for tours and kind of explaining to a lot of these people who had never been to a whiskey warehouse before the fundamental differences between rack house and dunnage style and our way of stacking casks. Oftentimes, our warehouse facility employees will tell guests what it means when when Shane has selected a cask that's at the very back and the bottom of the stack, and what that actually entails for them. So, when Shane sends a list of the casks that he wants to sample for a blend, it could be something, hey, you just pull that right off the end of the rack, or something that just to get that one cask out is like a day and a half worth of work for these guys. So, yeah, it's a lot of organization, but it's also a lot of just elbow grease and hard work. It's a
Sure.
team effort.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And hey, all, I really appreciate the opportunity to hang out with you for a while. I do have to run. I gotta go to another engagement and relieve my wife of childcare duties for the
No
evening.
worries,
So
Tyler. Thank you. But can I say that someday I hope you bring back the April Fools bottlings?
I appreciate you saying that. Me too.
duly noted. Duly noted. I think
Cheers.
we
Tyler,
can
thank
hope
you so
that.
much for
Appreciate
your
it, my
time.
man. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Have a great
Yeah.
night.
Thanks, Tyler.
All right, so everybody, we have a Garryana Edition 4 in the glass right now, and we're going back towards the
Thank God
unpeated
there was no
whiskey.
hand in there.
So
Sorry, there's kids running around.
that's okay. I get it. I got a dog running around. It's not a big deal. Um, we have with the edition 4, the newest of our. I'm sorry, the a new unpeated whiskey. With this one was a combination of our pale malt and our 5 malt varietal. So none of the peated malt is coming. Also, one of my favorite of those 65 different styles of casks that you can find in the Westland warehouses. This was probably the first time I ever was introduced to one of those. So this was also one of the evolutions of new single malt whiskey distillery, the ability to reuse our casks, something that most other distilleries in the United States, especially those that make bourbon, don't ever really get to do, but something that makes a single malt whiskey distillery, I think, have such an ability to really like tweak their flavor profiles. So we used 4 different styles of cask for this one. Actually, I'm sorry, 5. Used ex-American used virgin oak casks. So they were virgin oak. We used them once to make whiskey, kind of a refill Westland cask. And that was where it made of Quercus alba. Next, we use rye casks that we had purchased from American distilleries. So a little bit of ex-rye finding its way into the edition 4. So it's new Garryana oak casks for which this bottling is named for. And then something that's also become a mainstay of our maturation program, ex Pedro Jimenez casks. Also, a little bit of used Garryana oak. So again, what you've got there, whenever you see in the recipe a little bit of used Garryana oak, that's kind of what Tyler was just talking about. There may be a portion of the Garryana Edition 4 that was at least at some point Garryana Edition 2 or 3 kind of recast. In this particular one, I also do not have the total number of bottles that were made. However, at this point, we were getting into the area of about 3,500 to 4,000 bottles per
Which
release.
for worldwide distribution is still really small.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. At this point, we were still, just fighting our way to make to kind of grow in the U.S. market as well. We were just being acquired by Remy Cointreau at this point. A little bit.
I guess you were what, only 8 years old at this point,
Yeah.
right?
2011 to now. This was released in 2019. So,
Yeah.
but I figure when this was going into cask, that's also something to think about, especially with it's too bad that Tyler couldn't stay longer. I'm really happy he was able to join us for the amount of time he was. But I always like to kind of point out to people, like, we're all whiskey people. We understand these things, but it's something we have to remember in conversations about whiskey. Like, when were these decisions made? The bottle was released in 2019, but these raw materials, they were going into position in 2013. To get to the age that they are now. So. Yeah, I found the edition 4 to be definitely on the more, somebody mentioned toasted marshmallow before,
Mm.
which is usually a flavor profile that I associate with certain types of casks, but also toasted casks.
Yeah, toasted cask normally.
Just like, variety. The rye casks always give a little bit of a sweet vanilla, but at the same time, like, toasted casks are really like push forward a compound known as maltose, which gets destroyed in the charring process, but can actually be accentuated in toasting. So I always found this one to be very soft.
This one, I think the nose is completely different than every. That was the first thing I thought when I nosed this, is that the nose on 4 is completely different than 1 through 3 by a lot.
This is an elegant whiskey.
Yeah.
That's the term I would use. It's this very well-rounded.
Yeah, I'm
fairly complex.
in agreement with you, Nan.
A lot of herbaceous, like, typically, rye always makes, I know a lot of people kind of associate rye with spice, but rye casks, when used in single malt, they bring out such a almost green, what's the word I'm looking for? Verdant notes, and herbaceous, almost medicinal characters. And I think, for the nuance that you were saying, like, there really is an elegance to this, but it's also because on the nose, compared to the palate, there's a taste on my palate that I did not expect from the nose. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like caught me off guard, picking up on the nose, sweetness, softness, vanilla, but on the palate, there's this herbal, maybe even hint of rosemary. I don't know, but it's there.
I will say it develops a lot in the glass too. So the longer this sits in the glass, the more I think it kind of eases and, like, it opens up for sure. Good one.
It's almost like a really, really rich French toast with a mint garnish.
Oh,
So
French
Lindsay over here
toast.
says it's almost like a French toast, a really rich French toast with a mint garnish.
Nice. So the
There is a
good
little bit
news
of that minty note on
Just
the
a little
nose.
bit, yeah.
Like, it's barely there. I didn't really even notice it much, but it also could be that I just said it. I don't know.
I mean, you're talking about the herbaceous note. It's like
Yeah.
that, yeah.
But not like the sort of grassy, but not quite.
Not overly so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say this one separates itself in a taste profile from the other 3, where the other 3 are a little bit linear, and this one's not. It's not completely different, but it's different by a good amount.
If in a way, it's kind of the flavors that we've associated with Gary Oak through the first 3. Those bacony, barbecue, kind of dark molasses, rich clove notes. Even like, for me, there's always been a slight hint of, like, kind of black licorice, very slight with Garryana.
No, don't say that, because I hate black licorice.
Yeah, I did.
Oh yeah, really? Oh,
with a passion, I hate black licorice. I don't get that in the Gary in the
no,
first.
but to
Thank
me,
God.
this is the first one that it's like the Garryana profile is very, very integrated. It's not hitting that kind of barbecue smoke Garryana that I know. It's very balanced. Got one little moth.
This is a great whiskey.
Now the good news is we step into 5. This is when day started. So
we can pour 5. I'm good on 4. Doug, it must be pretty spicy in Mission Viejo right now, yeah?
It's a little toasty, yeah.
Yeah.
Really? 2019.
If it's 85 in Costa Mesa, I figure you have to be at least 5 degrees more.
Right, so-
Oh,
Yeah, well, and yeah. The heat's not the big issue.
a
It's the
12-month
humidity. We're not used to any humidity, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
This one's 2019 is rye, right?
yes. Much softer nose on this one than 4.
Do you have any of these?
More barbecue notes on this.
best of them. I don't have one. I don't have 3.
Because I need to compare to 2019 to my professional, my
This is definitely stepping into a new territory for Gary 5. This was, I believe, the first one that incorporated, as Tyler pointed out, the flag style cover. The outpost range was kind of like really coming into existence at this point. We made a total of 5,600 bottles with Garryana Edition 5.
How many did you say?
5,625.
Oh, I think said 400 something. I was like, oh my God, what?
Wait, for which one?
For Gary 5.
5,600.
And this one was a total of 23 different casks. The youngest of which was a 45-month-old. The oldest of which was 73 months. So we're still not talking about old whiskey here. You know, as you know, we didn't get to age statement on Garryana until we got to edition 10. That was actually, we didn't get to an age statement on the entire distillery until edition 10. I always remember it was you know, with Garryana, like, you know, the initial belief with such a powerful flavor factor on the oak, like age is never going to be the friend here. But I think that it goes to show like how much skill Shane ended up bringing into the blending process. So in this case, it was a combination of 2 different styles of barley. Predominantly, there was a higher proportion, a total of like 15 of the casks were filled with Washington Pale Malt. As I said before, that's going to really let the casks kind of like sing a higher degree of flavor into the spirit itself. Putting it this way, like, you know, everybody knows, you know, some will say 70 to 80% of the flavor in the whiskey coming from the cask. Pale malt has been the medium for most of the distillation industry for almost all of whiskey history. Pale malt is just great at letting those casks like overpower the flavor of the distillate. I think newer, more scientifically minded or more poetry minded blenders or distillers would often like kind of incorporate new styles, new varieties that would allow a flavor to remain from the barley. But the idea is that like you don't want to use a cask that's already been sapped of its flavor before you really like kind of because you don't want the wood to overpower it. Now, what we got here, however, 15 of these casks that were made with Washington Pale Select were actually filled into ex-Jack Daniels casks.
Mhm.
So the remainder was the peated malt. It was a total of 8 casks, and that was all in new Garryana oak.
Mm.
So heavily peated variety here that fared heavily peated malt, as Tyler mentioned, 55 ppm. That doesn't mean that's what we end up with, especially because this is blending in. But still, I'd say this is probably in the area of about 25 ppm.
I was gonna say, I don't know that I would pick up a whole lot of peat. It could be my palate's maybe dead after the 4th, 5th one, but
Really? Yeah, no.
I don't pick
Yeah,
up a ton of
that's
peat on this.
Picking up on the peat. Yeah.
Like traditional, like I'm thinking traditional peat, right? So like I'm just not picking up on it.
So it's a total, the peated malt made up of 36% of the total of the liquid that went into the Garryana 5.
Also, I'll say for me, for my palate, this one's the most muted of the 5 we've tried so far.
Yeah.
When I say muted, I mean it's not
Oh,
like there's something distinct about all of them that kind of pops out to me. This one's just kind of sits there. It's like, and it's not, doesn't pop.
so I get the peat when I drink it, and then the vapors go out my nose, and the peat jumps right there.
Yeah. So this one was released
No,
in,
it was more of just like umami.
I get umami on the nose. I don't really get any peat on the palate, but the vapors that go up your nose after you drink, there I get like, oh yeah, there's the smoke.
See, but it makes me think Garryana though. That's why I'm thinking it's Garryana. So that's why maybe it's it's kind of a fun one because I wouldn't have guessed. I'll put it this way: I wouldn't have guessed that there's a decent amount of peated malt in this.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of ashiness on the finish.
This was also a 2020 release. This was the release that came out literally like days before the pandemic.
And I will say, I like this more with a drop of water in it because it opens up a lot of the flavors to me. So what I was saying, and then I added a drop of water, I'm like, okay, now it's starting to pop a little. So, and for you guys who've known me long enough, I hardly ever add water to whiskey, but
yeah,
I did like it in this one.
We have another 6 bottles, right?
Yeah, we
Shane,
only have 7 more to go. So
Shane's flavor profiles. I don't often try to come up with my own, but I like, especially because I was actually on board when 5 was around. I got some tasting notes from Shane himself, the blender, and his nose called it on cottonwood, smoked chocolate, and he trademarks the term waffle crisp, which I think is a little bit of a stooped waffle in his head. I don't know, waffle crisp. Maybe he was thinking of his cereal that morning. But also the palate, he lists on cocoa butter, charred maple wood, and clove. And that's, as I said, directly from Shane Armstrong, the blender.
Interesting. I mean, he's got to have a good palate at this point, right?
No, I will. One cool thing about living in Seattle was, but once a week he gets all the staff together in the morning and just does this blind tasting thing, and everybody writes down their notes. He focuses in on such unique aspects of appreciating a whiskey, like including fields like nasal texture and other like incredibly new ways of looking at whiskey that I was really blessed to have been able to see the way that he analyzes whiskey. Shane is definitely an interesting part of the I'd say, look, he's hand in hand with the signature of Westland. So if anybody's ever like Tyler said, he's been there from the beginning on quality assurance and quality control, but blending since so long ago. Like, I think if you love the Westland signature, Shane Armstrong has a big part of that.
Yeah, and Matt used to give Shane a lot of credit, so he has to know his shit for sure.
As we said, it's always a moment in, let's say, the development of a distillery when the founder leaves. It happens. Nobody stays forever, and when Matt Hoffman left, a lot of people approached me, hey, what's it like at Westland now? There's one thing they always have the permanence of. It's like, well, Tyler and Shane are still there, so it's still very much who we are. Like we said at the beginning when Tyler first joined us, like, make no mistake, Matt and Emerson definitely founded it, but Tyler and Shane were amongst the very first employees. So, all right. Questions about the 5? Anybody want to kind of call out what they've enjoyed the most? Me personally, as I said, I didn't have the edition 1. I might have enjoyed that. I don't know. But I'm still loving the edition 4 out of all 5 so far. Anybody else?
I love 1. I'm always going to love 1. There's just no doubt about that. 3, and I will say, I didn't love 4 at first, and it grew on me. So I like it more now. I don't know if it's beating 1 or 3 for me, but it's real close to 3. 1 still just is my favorite. It's probably nostalgia, I'm sure, but I actually really like the taste of it. I love the extra Gary influence on it. So there's that for me.
So we're stepping into edition 6 now. As I said, I had been on board with Westland since edition 5, but in all truth, edition 5 was already out in market when I started with the team. So I was able to learn more about it from Tyler and Shane and Matt, but I was able to kind of be on hand for the entire the entirety around the release of edition 6.
Oh,
We're actually, so from the core, we actually jumped to 10.
we're jumping way ahead.
But if you want to tell us anything about 6, 7, 8, or 9, and then after we taste 10, I'll cut the recording, and then
Oh,
we
I see.
can go in whatever order we want to there. But if there was anything special about 6, 7, 8, or 9, please tell us, because there's plenty of people who got those, but not everyone did. So
I see. All right. Well, I mean, obviously, so as obviously as I was saying, like edition 6 was kind of special to me. Also because the bartender in me was always looking for balance in things, and while Garryana has that natural smokiness, one thing that's always irritated me slightly about going out there and talking to the uninitiated whiskey lovers is how many times people try to pair smoky whiskeys with cigars. Now, I can see why people pair Garryana with cigars, but especially with edition 5, where it had such a peaty profile, at least for my palate, it didn't make sense to me to pair it. But edition 6 came around with such a candied combination of casks that it became quickly one of my go-tos for those kind of events or master classes. We used in this one a little bit of Calvados. We used a little bit of second fill PX Sherry. We used the new Gary Oak, but also some Washington State apple brandy and Washington State grape brandy.
I don't know that your dad wants me feeding you.
Oh, well, and then Garryana 7. I think what you'd find if you want to explore that one is where like the very first inklings of where we ended up taking the Garryana series to where it is today, with the first explorations of Washington State red wine. Again, kind of focusing in on the sustainability and the local community nature of Westland's work. Washington has a huge growing viticulture. And so in the absence of the sherry casks of yesteryear, we started sourcing some really fantastic red wine casks from Washington wineries, which started showing their face in the Garryana collections around 7. 8, history in the making, the very first American single malt whiskey to ever touch the top 3 whiskeys of Whiskey Advocates, top 20 whiskeys of the year. So we were really not, I mean, I would say we weren't too surprised, but we were very pleased when Garryana Edition 8 was named the number 3 whiskey of the year. And I think that broke new territory for this new category of American single malt. Edition 9, I also like that he took it in a different direction. And that's what I love about this series, is that, I would introduce people to Garryana one side of the country to the other. Some people love it, some people hated it. But I would always have the opportunity to tell them, like, it doesn't matter if you don't like this one's. Don't be afraid to try next year's, because next year's may take the whiskey in a whole different direction for you. And as you guys might know, edition 10, where we'll end up our tasting later on, for those who had that in the list, we get into Westland's very first age statement and a little bit of a story of perfidy to kind of discuss with that one as well.
And I was chatting with, speaking of Joey, I was chatting with Joey earlier today. He said his 2 favorites based on his tastings and memory are 1-1 and 7-1. So I'm interested to see. But I think the fun thing with the Gary lineup so far has been that I think if you have 20 different people, it's very possible that you're going to get completely different answers. Or if you have 10 different people, you might get 10 different answers on which one's your favorite. So I think that's really interesting about the Gary lineup. So all right, we're going to pour 10.
All right. Jumping forward to edition 10. Want to spend a moment and actually showcase the bottle itself as well. Although my light may be a little bit too much glare. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, mine too, but there you
New
go.
foiled bottling. I absolutely love it. The little bit of a blend between the Outpost range signage.
And I love this. I love the cap on it. So like,
Look at that.
Coin in the cap.
This one I'm keeping in my bucket. So
where did you get the cap done from?
I don't know. That's a good question that they did not share with me. They don't always tell the brand ambassadors things like that, but I will ask. So I'll let Nando know, and you can share it with the group later on. But they did a beautiful job with it. They got that nice little coin set in it. More of a hardwood look, more of a dark hardwood look on it, but also more sustainable. I think that one thing that did evolve was in some years we were using actual cork. With this new coin cap, we use polycarbonate, which is much more sustainable than cork.
And I prefer them, if I'm being honest, because they don't rot and they're just better. So,
Okay.
anyone
It's also a little throwback to the actual wood, like in the early labels.
yep.
And a special moment. What can I say? When I first started working for the distillery, hired directly by Matt Hoffman, Matt being a young guy in the distillation game, one of the youngest guys to ever be named Distiller of the Year, he had his opinions, and he's a very Seattle kind of guy. One of the things he first said to me was, "We will never, ever make an age statement." And for some reason, I believed him. I don't know. And as I would tell that to people out there in the whiskey world, and especially the real whiskey lovers would say to me, like, "Yeah, okay, sure. Say that to us when you're 18 years old." When you're talking about a young distillery, you're really trying to like lean into the fact that age isn't everything. I think it was very much a line in the sand that Matt wanted to draw on his belief around whiskey. And to his point, I would say the best way I've ever really heard it put is the age on the side of a bottle does not tell you how good the whiskey is. It only tells you how old the whiskey is.
Well, the problem is that's for more people like us that have been doing this for a while. We understand that, we know it. And quite honestly, some of my favorite whiskeys are young whiskeys. So especially if we're talking about peat, because I love the vibrancy of peat in a younger peated whiskey. But not everyone like loves that. But I think, I've loved Westland over a decade now, so like I was there when it was young, and like I was like, oh, this is cool. Like especially with the chocolate malting. The first time I ever heard about chocolate malting was with Westland, and that's what set me down that whole rabbit hole of that. And that's what I'm saying. Like when I drink a Westland, a lot of times I have friends who would just like pour me something, but if you pour me a Westland, I know it's Westland. Like I just know.
Yeah, that dark roast malt,
95% of the
it's
time,
not
I'm
common.
100%, but
Like I said before, we're not going to often say that we were the first to do anything. We were definitely not the first in the whiskey industry to use dark roasted or kilned malts. But we did our research and we looked around, and we found, as a matter of fact, only one other distillery had ever really used dark roasted malts in the process of making single malt whiskey, and it was Glenmorangie with their Signet bottling. Beautiful.
which is the only Glenmo I like.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, then and Bill Lumsden,
Consistently.
he did an 80% pale malt, 20% dark chocolate malt for that one. And if Glenmorangie Signet, that's a $250 bottle at minimum.
Very
Washington State, that was hitting 400. So it's insane. I'm back here in New York. I'm starting to see like Signet for like 250, and like that's where it on average is, 2 to 250. But yeah, that's across the board in almost every Westland bottling.
Yeah.
5 malt and dark chocolate malts is being used. So back to the edition 10. This time we used it's nice to jump forward in the future to see how much we've grown. Remember, we started out with edition 1 with a total of 2,500 bottles in the release. 10 years later,
sorry if I can get older.
We have for edition 10 with a total of 7,872 bottles made, but about half of those went to the market. That would be comprised of a total of 33 casks, the youngest of which was 10 years old. We bottled this one at 50% ABV, and the distillate was a split between 2 different types of spirits. All right, we had 5 malt accommodating 42% of the overall whiskey being made, and the pale malt was 58% of the whiskey. But we get very complicated when we look at Shane's cask maturation with this one. Let's get very general at first. 5 different types of casks. Garryana oak, obviously. That made up 32% of the vatting. Wine casks, predominantly Washington State wine, although sometimes Westland is fond of using Spanish dark wines like Tempranillo. That made up 22%. 21% was actually made in refilled Westland casks. And those casks, it bears mentioning when we talk about a refilled Westland cask, what a powerful commodity those casks are, because for our virgin oak, we use kind of take a page from the winemaker's book and used only slow growth oak that had been air dried between a year and a half to 2 years. So a refill Westland cask is I'd say a little bit more special than just a ex bourbon.
And you get your staves out of Portland, you said, yeah? So or
Well, no, from Gary Oak at the beginning, we used Rewine in Oregon, and yeah, they're near Portland.
Okay.
It has changed over the years, and at this point, I'd say we work with about 5 different cooperages. For virgin oak, we've almost always gotten it from Independent Stave Company, and they give us 2 different types of cask: a Cooper's Reserve, which is an 18-month
Mm-hmm.
air drying process, a char number 3 and a toast level number 1, or Cooper's Select, which is a 24-month air drying process with a char number 1 and a toast level of 3. So those different virgin oak casks, because they're air dried, they don't have the tannins that you might associate with kiln dried oak, which is commonly used in the bourbon industry. So let's say there's a reduction of the cinnamon and somewhat peppery flavors that we typically associate with bourbon, whereas the vanillin and the caramel notes in American white oak tend to be elevated because they're not really fighting against that spice and tannin.
And then do you guys still use Gobi walnut or no?
No, we have some walnut casks in there amongst the 65 that you mentioned, but no, we're not using them anymore.
I do have to say though, Gobi walnut does some really cool stuff. So
okay, on the cooperage.
Yeah.
I don't believe so. Pardon me. I don't believe we have worked with them in a couple years.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that some of their casks aren't still in the warehouse.
Yeah, sure. Fair. Okay. Sorry.
Devin, you talked about the char level and the toast level, and I had never heard anybody really speak about that. What is the scale? When you say a 1, what is the high and what is the low?
Okay, so in char levels for let's say in bourbon casks, in American standard barrels, there's 1 through 4. 1 is the lowest, 4 is the highest. 4 is also known as what we call an alligator char. And that's very simply because when you char cask to that point, you start getting that kind of scaling that makes it look like alligator scales. But really what it comes down to is just about 15 seconds of direct flame. So you'll see videos all the time at a cooperage as casks are being constructed. And just about on every sizzle reel for a cooperage, they show cask charring because it's very photogenic. They put the cask on this almost like a big Bunsen burner thing, and then they just step on a pedal and blast straight fire out of the side of the casks. That direct connection between the wood and the flame locks in that kind of char layer that has a way of pulling heavy compounds and transferring color into the whiskey itself. But there can also be a big impact on flavor. So, if you wanted to go with a char number 1, you're getting some of that filtration, but not as much. The whiskey will be a little wilder, but you might allow some of those fruitier flavors to kind of survive the maturation process. Char number 4, I always think of Stag Junior. Char number 4 just really hit you with that really rich kind of like wood spice, very tannic, dry, dark color on the whiskey, but also super extractive of heavy compounds.
I love Stag Junior.
Now, toasting, however, a little bit more of a new practice in coopering. Toasting is really just applying a gentle heat, or not even so much a gentle heat, but instead of actually directly connecting that flame to the wood on the inside of the cask, you're kind of slowly heating from a few inches off. You're basically just toasting the inside layers of the cask. If you ever have an opportunity and you want to be blown away by people who I'd like to say are unsung for their contribution of flavor in the whiskey industry, get a seminar with a cooper, because these guys, what they're providing for all of our palates is so underestimated. I learned in that toasting process, the difference between toasting and charring is, dozens of different compounds, organoleptic compounds that actually are completely destroyed or accentuated by direct fire. So as I said before, like, when I like toasted barrel bourbons and stuff like that, it's usually because softer flavors are left more intact. There's certain compounds that just, you put flame directly on the wood for 1 second, those compounds are gone. If you toast it, you allow them to remain. And that's where you get those really light, subtle flavors. Maltio, sandalwood, even kind of slightly hazelnut notes typically come around toasting.
Is that toasting scale 1 to 4 as well?
I don't 100% know about that. I'm going to have to get back to you on that one because I know that with the Cooper's Reserve and Cooper's Select, the toast levels are actually denoted by Independent Stave Company, but I do not know if I've ever seen if there's a cap on that scale. But I'll get back to you on that. Promise. That's actually a very good question. Thank you.
ISC's out of Missouri?
They have 4 cooperages around the whole world. They have the one in Missouri, and that's who we predominantly work with.
Yeah.
But I believe they have one in Belgium. I think they have one in the Ukraine. I'm not sure, but I know they have 4 facilities worldwide.
Sure, the Belgians are known for their wood, right?
Say again.
Belgians are known for their wood.
Is that so? I did not know that.
No, it's a joke.
He's joking.
Okay. I was going to say, is that I wasn't sure if we were having a euphemism.
The Ukraine. Yeah, moving on. I was thinking, what Ukraine would use a lot in those Tokai casts, maybe. Although
Hungarian would, right? So,
anyway, sorry.
So as I was saying, for the Garryana 10, I was saying refill Westland casks are quite a commodity, but they only make up 21% of the total. For the edition 10, 17% of the vatting was actually in rum casks.
Really?
And only because we're in a virtual environment, can I actually share these are Mount Gay rum casks, but they aren't always, and we're not really allowed to kind of impart that out there in the market. It would seem to make sense because Cointreau also owns Mount Gay. But to actually get rum casks that survive the process of making rum and can stand up to whiskey being placed in them and transporting them around the country, around the world, is quite rare. So in this case, little insider information, we use Mount Gay rum cask, and 8% of the total vatting was in bourbon. Now that is, as I said, general cask types. I'm not going to go through all of the percentage points for the remainder, but let me expound further. First fill Garryana oak, brand new. First fill rum casks, straight, still wet from the Caribbean, shipped whole. Second fill Cooper's Reserve casks. That means we've used them once. Those are refilled Westland casks. First fill PX hogsheads. Second fill new Garryana oak casks. First fill bourbon casks. Second fill Cooper's Select casks. So both different styles from Independent Stave Company. As I mentioned, the wine cask is going to use Spanish Tempranillo. And first fill port also found its way in there. So in the general cask type, we have 5 different cask styles. But when we get a little bit more specific, Shane used a total of 8 different casks for this one. I'm sorry, 9 different types of cask for this particular one. So basically what he was looking for is, I don't know, I feel like Shane kind of saved the very best for the 10. And I'd love to see what you guys think about this one. I also mentioned, while 7,872 bottles of this were made, I mentioned a little bit of perfidy that led to only about half of those casks getting out into the market. Those of you who may have heard about this, forgive me. But yeah, basically, one day at our warehouses in Skagit Valley, we have our bottling facility just across the field from there. It's really like a 5-minute walk. And we have a fantastic team of people up there who run our bottling hall and our warehouse team. A truck showed up one day and had the proper bill of lading and everything passed muster. And these guys know what they're doing. They checked everything and they loaded about half of our new first ever age statement 10-year-old Garryana edition 10. probably about half of the total that we had made onto that truck, and then filled the other half of the truck with a new release that we were working on, our very first collaboration with another distillery, Westland's new blended whiskey called Watchpost Whiskey, onto the truck, and then closed it up, patted the driver on the shoulder, and said, "Safe journey." And found out about a week later that that truck never arrived at its end point. Basically, yeah, we don't really know what happened from there. Basically, that either the bill of lading was false, or the truck driver had been mislaid, waylaid, or someone, tricked into delivering it to the wrong place. But basically, that shipment was hijacked. We don't know where it ended. We did call the police. We launched an investigation. Same day, another part of the country. You guys may have heard of Guy Fieri and Sammy Hagar's new tequila collaboration also got hijacked from a truck on its way. So there are some people who speculate and say about 3,500 bottles of Garryana Edition 10 started their journey to either China or South America on that very day. When questioned about it, Shane Armstrong, our master blender, in his very Seattle way, he said, "And I'm just so glad that somebody wants to drink it that much." So to that, Garryana Edition 10.
Here's to that. That's a good way to think about it.
So when you say it was second fill Garryana, does that mean the third time whiskey's been in the barrel or the second time whiskey's been in the barrel?
No, in that case, second fill Garryana, yes, that's been used already twice. So we used it as virgin oak. We used it one more time. Now it's been used twice, not like a bourbon barrel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, basically, as I understand it, because I've asked the same question of Shane myself. There are some third fill Garryana casks in the warehouse, but they don't have a powerful effect. I believe they become pretty much holding vessels at that point.
Yeah, that would.
And
But
not great holding vessels considering how porous they are, I would assume. So.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing is also, maybe they've been so logged that they are actually. Yeah, you're right. Like, there's no point in really using them as a holding vessel. He must be looking for an effective flavor. And I think that's also part of the fun part of being a blender is like, he's got some stuff in there that's experimental that he's keeping close tabs on, but at the same time, like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, they do not make for the best casks over long term. They have
And then
to
are you guys using any do you do any STR? Shaved toasted
Yes.
mustard?
There is a few in there. I haven't heard of them actually going into a release yet, however. But I did ask that question. Yeah, I think even before Shane came on board, Matt and Emerson were exploring STR casts as a kind of basically on the advice of distilleries, on the advice of consultancies. A lot of people out there were really experimenting with Jim Swan's teachings. So, STR casks are definitely one of the cask styles we have in there. Every year or so, Shane will send out an inventory of casks, and I always have a lot of fun kind of exploring through and seeing what the weirdest ones in there are.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be cool. Okay, well, has everyone tried the 10?
What do you guys think?
Beth, what's your favorite? What's your favorite of the 6? We got to find a favorite tonight.
Probably the 10.
Sorry, which one, Beth?
The 10.
10 was your favorite?
Kind of.
I accidentally muted. Mike said 10 is a callback to 4.
It just was kind of like really like just kind of stately whiskey.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're talking about casks. We're talking about the influence of barley style. It's a new conversation to talk about the impact of time. with this whiskey at Westland. We have never had that conversation before about a 10-year-old whiskey. So, I remember when the very first releases of wine and beer casks were coming out there. Officially, as they go, they're a non-age statement whiskey, but we actually, could see these were the very first casks of Westland that anybody had ever really tasted at 9 and 10 years old, except for Shane and Tyler and Matt. And there was like something that happens at that very special age that I think became part of our signature. With a 10-year-old whiskey with Westland, there's, for me, a very subtle kind of herbaceous, almost old toothpaste note, like old rye sometimes has. You know what I'm talking about? Like some old rye, when you taste like 25, 30-year-old rye, there's this almost fruity peppermint that reminds me of like, I'm showing my age here, but if you ever tasted like tooth powder back in the old days and they had tooth powder, it's got this really kind of
I'm not exactly young, and I haven't fucking heard of that. So.
Oh, really? No. Oh, man. It didn't all have to be toothpaste. But I don't know. But that's just me. It's one thing that really jumped out of the 10. The very state is well way to put it.
Lindsay, what's yours? What's your favorite?
The rye?
4.
Yeah, 4.
Okay,
4.
Lindsay says 4.
I like that the comparison that there's just kind of like an evolved version on the 4. Interesting. Yeah, I wonder. I mean, and you'd think it was the port cask, but that's only 2% of this total.
Let me read.
Hey.
I'm gonna
revisit.
I'm gonna revisit the one real quick.
I really liked one.
Just to make sure.
While you're doing that, let me since I did it for the edition 5, I want to read Shane's tasting notes. The nose for edition 10. He calls it mulled wine with clove.
Mulled wine with, okay, I can see that.
Walnut fudge brownie.
I don't see that.
Lemon Danish pastry. The one thing I've always loved about Shane is his variety with tasting notes.
I will say but when you're making tasting notes, you're not just tasting it one time. You're coming back to it multiple times, right? And so your palate's maybe a little different on day 2 versus day 3 or day 1, right? So you get different things out of it. So that's why I enjoy it, and also why I tell everyone, if you don't like it first time, try it 2, 3, 4 times before you say I definitively don't like it, right? Unless it's like some bullshit like what's that Balcones one that I fucking hate?
Brimstone.
Brimstone. I'm awful. Don't fucking drink that ever.
Bacon. That's bacon, man. I tried to make cocktails with that. That was tough. Shane's palate notes for Garryana on 10. S'more, dehydrated strawberry, toasted cumin, and blood orange.
See, I think I'm just a 1-1 guy. Well, I just like the influence. I will say that the 3 for me is really nice too. And after your explanation of what the 3 was to the 1, or Tyler's and yours, it makes a hell of a lot more sense why I'm like, oh, 3 I like a lot too. And I agree, the 4, I think 4 over 10 for me. But we also have 6, 7, 8, and 9 to go. So I'm gonna say 1. 1 for me. It's nice. It's just and again, part of it's maybe nostalgia because it's the one in my mind the first time I had it, but it's still really good. So I can't.
I'm just me being a little prick. Must be nice.
Yeah, I know. It's okay. Doug, I don't know if you're on still, or what was your favorite? Or you can chat either way.
I think if I was whiskey reviewer,
so at this point, it's.
What's your favorite?
Yeah, I'd say I really like 5. I also really like the 10. Yeah.
No, I didn't change. I'm observing.
Okay, fair.
Well, it's 1 or 3. I'm following behind you.
Okay, hold on.
I'm down exactly the same place.
The 10-year drinks hotter at 53%.
Will you pass me the 3?
The 56% still.
Oh, what I will say I really loved about the 3 is that this does not drink at 56%. This would get me in trouble.
I like just a little touch of sweetness that food has over one. I don't know if I like it more, but I do like the touch of sweetness.
It is easier to drink, I will say that.
The 10?
I like the boldness in one.
Yeah. I'm past liking
The
whiskey.
youth.
I want to be hit in the face by it. I want to be intrigued. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a masochist. I like getting
Yeah.
sometimes, so it's okay.
We'll pass that along.
I will say 3 is fucking lovely too. There's a lot of these. These are all good. There's no bad whiskey here tonight. Yeah, 3's a close second for me, but I think I'm 1. I gotta say.
Right. So 1, 3, and then
4.
And then Lindsay was 4.
And then Beth was
10.
okay. So a nice variety of
That's what I'm saying. We
yeah.
could do this, and I think if you had 10 people, I think you could potentially get 10 different answers. So okay, we'll have to figure that out later. I'm gonna stop the recording right now. And then